Welcome to the Introverted Misfit podcast with me, Caroline Smith, where we discuss topics related to the human experience of connection and communication with a slightly awkward introverted twist. So, I recently did a poll of all of the shy and socially awkward introverts on my Facebook, asking if they have previously struggled with or are still struggling with feelings of jealousy towards extroverts who can talk to people with ease and have a very lively personality. And the overwhelming majority of the respondents, about 72% actually, answered yes. To give you an idea of what the respondents said, some said that they envy people who can walk into a room and all of the attention immediately goes towards them. Some of them said that they were jealous that extroverts can talk to people and not be exhausted afterwards. Someone said that they wished they had the quote unquote gift of gab, that was my first time ever hearing that phrase. So I had to Google it. But apparently, the gift of gab means the ability to talk at length, typically about trivial matters. Some people said they were jealous at how effortless extroverts make socializing look. A couple of people said that they struggled with their conversational skills. Someone even said that witnessing extroverts socializing makes them feel worse about their lack of confidence and self-esteem. And then I got a handful of people who simply just said yes with no further explanation, which is pretty straightforward. So, this podcast episode is for those of you shy, socially anxious, socially awkward introverts who find yourself looking at the extroverts in your life and wishing and praying that you had even an ounce of the charismatic, larger than life personality that many of them possess. In today's episode, I'm going to demonstrate to you how you can get rid of those feelings of jealousy by building confidence in and harnessing the power of your introverted qualities. So I have an ultra extroverted older sister. She's very lively, very charismatic. She knows how to work a room. She will literally talk to anyone who will listen. If she doesn't have at least 10 conversations a day, she does not feel alive. So, when people say that that person has never met a stranger, that describes my sister to a T. And I know she won't mind me telling y'all this story because we joke about this all the time. And she also told me that I could use her as an example in this episode. So I can vividly remember back when I was still struggling with social anxiety and low self-confidence, I used to tag along with her and her to her various music performances because she is a jazz and R&B singer out in Dallas, Texas. By the way, check out her Instagram at the Ashleigh Smith. That's TheAshleigh, or you can just find the link in the description if that's easier. But sometimes the music at these venues that she performs at, it's really loud, but it's always really good. People are always dancing and they're singing along. And I am not exaggerating when I say that almost everyone is just drawn to her naturally bubbly, lively, and extroverted personality. And for me, one of the most frustrating things about watching her in action is that it was so obvious to me that she wasn't even trying to draw people's attention in that way. She just automatically knew how to do it. Or I don't even know if she knows that she's doing it. It's just who she is. Like she's just wired to be that way. And at this point of me telling the story, you're probably sensing a bit of jealousy from me, and you would be right. So here I am admitting on the internet that yes, I used to be jealous of extroverts. I was jealous of the way that they could easily make connections at the drop of a hat, how they could attract all of the attention as soon as they walked into the room, and how they could just walk into any social interaction with seemingly no fear of rejection or embarrassment or any of that, just no fear at all. And I mean, with me being a shy and socially awkward introvert, there really was nothing else that I could do except for sit on the sidelines and just be envious of who I would never be. And it wasn't just my sister, by the way. I used to struggle with these feelings in school a lot and also in my first full-time job. So I was that shy, quiet coworker and employee who was too nervous to even speak above a whisper. And I remember there was this one coworker in particular who was a lot like my sister, actually. And when, compared to her, I just felt like my communication deficits and my flaws were a lot more noticeable, especially in situations like team meetings or, workplace parties and catered lunches and things like that, team activities. But what I eventually realized is that I wasn't really jealous of their extroversion because I did and I still do enjoy my alone time. And I really only like talking to one or maybe a handful of people at a time very sparingly. Like I am definitely, I still like like being introverted in my little introvert bubble alone. So what I was actually jealous of was their social confidence and their likability. Because in addition to being introverted, I am also autistic, which is something that I've talked about a lot at length on previous episodes of this podcast, which essentially, in terms of this conversation, it just means that I am innately socially awkward in many ways, in addition to a bunch of other things that autism um, in in addition to all of the other symptoms of autism, I should say. And that was actually the root cause of my severe social anxiety for nearly a decade. So when I say that what I was not, or when I say that I wasn't actually jealous of their extroversion, I was jealous of their social confidence and likability. What I'm trying to get at is that introverted is not synonymous with shy, socially anxious, and socially awkward. They're not the same things. Those are separate things from being an introvert. Um, and I also go into a lot more detail about that specific topic on one of my earlier podcast episodes, which is titled, Are You Introverted, Shy, or Both? Discover the Key Differences. So you should check that one out after you're finished with this one, because that one's got a lot of gems for you as well. But I'm just going to give you a quick summary of what I talked about in that episode, which is an introvert is a person who is more reserved and quiet, tends to be more introspective, and enjoys spending more time alone than with others. That's the general definition. And of course, no two introverts are exactly the same. So there will be some introverts who are a little bit more social than others, and all of those disclaimers. So that's an introvert. A shy or socially anxious person is nervous or even fearful around other people. Or should I say fearful, nervous or fearful of interacting with people. So shy and socially anxious is not as simple as just preferring to be alone like introverted is. It has to do with avoiding people in social interactions because you are nervous or scared about interacting with them. So it's really a difference of preference versus fear when you talk about introversion versus shyness and social anxiety. Now, I did not come to this realization that my introversion was not the problem until well after I overcame my social anxiety a few years ago. But now that I have had this breakthrough for myself, I want to offer you this suggestion, presuming that you are also still shy and socially awkward as an introvert. Here's the suggestion. Maybe the only reason that you are feeling jealous of your extroverted peers has nothing to do with you being introverted and everything to do with you lacking confidence in your introverted strengths and abilities. So then your jealousy of extroverts really has nothing to do with them being extroverted and everything to do with them being confident in themselves in a way that you are not. And I think that if you can become more secure with yourself and your strengths, as particularly as an introvert, I think you will no longer be comparing yourself to the extroverts in your life and thinking, why can't I be more like them? So here is one realization that I have come to. Extroverts reach people in a way that introverts can't, and introverts reach people in a way that extroverts can't. So that means that we play very different roles that are equally as important. And I actually wrote a poem about this very concept a while ago, and I read it aloud in the beginning of one of my other podcast episodes titled The Valuable Role of Introverts in the Introvert Extrovert Balance. But I'm going to give you just a quick summary of what that poem was about because it fits in perfectly with what I'm trying to explain here. So the poem is about a deer, a meek deer, and a roaring lion. The deer, who is very quiet and quaint, is envious of the lion who has this mighty roar and struts around with all of this confidence that just commands a lot of immediate attention, from everyone. So the deer asks the lion, "How can I be more like you? How can I walk around with a strut like yours and learn to roar as loudly and as commanding as you do?" And the lion responds by saying, "Your role in our ecosystem, our universe, is different than mine, but that does not mean that it is any less important." And then I kind of go on this, in the poem, I go on this ecological explanation of the deer's role in the ecosystem and how if it didn't play its role, it would cause this chain reaction throughout the ecosystem that just makes everything unsustainable and then nothing can survive. But this is not that's really getting into too much of the details because this is not a podcast about ecology. The moral of the poem is that introverts and extroverts have different strengths and roles that connect with people in ways that the other can't. So we each fill a gap that the other cannot fill. And in that way, there really is no reason for you to be jealous of extroverts other than the fact that you lack confidence in yourself and your abilities. You don't trust that what you have to offer others as an introvert is good enough. And that is the real problem. That's why you feel that twinge of jealousy every time you are in the presence of that one lively, extroverted, charismatic person that I know you can picture in your mind right now when I just described it. So that one person who every time they walk into a room, you start thinking, here they go again, life of the party, everybody loves them, yada, 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 getting all of the attention. And you're just sitting there feeling your body tighten up and get hot with envy. And I know that you hate feeling that way because I know I hated feeling that way, especially about my own sister. So, how can you stop feeling this way? You have to learn to trust that your introverted personality has value and power. And it does have value and power, even though you may not believe it right now. So, for instance, maybe your preference for one-on-one conversations allows you to create deeper and higher quality connections. Maybe your introspective nature gives you the ability to empathize and have compassion for what other people are going through. Maybe your love of deep thought gives you a much deeper understanding of the problems that someone else may not have thought all the way through yet. And maybe all of that quiet alone time that you use to recharge really just allows your creativity to flow so that the next time you're in a workplace meeting or the next time you're with a friend or your family or next time you decide to embark on a project, you've already thought about all of these creative ideas. And if you have a pen and paper handy, or if you can just take your phone out and make notes on it, I would like for you to write down, pause this episode, and then write down what you think your communication strengths are. So after you've written all of those down, Now, how do you build that trust in those same strengths and qualities that you just wrote down? How do you build that trust in your introversion? Because, of course, every other life coach, podcaster, motivational speaker is always saying that you have to be more confident. But how do you do that when you don't have any self confidence or you have low self esteem? You build confidence with action. You build trust in yourself, i.e., self confidence, with action. So, action means proving to yourself that you can set a goal, say you're going to do it, actually follow through with doing it to the best of your ability. So, take action. And then, once you have proven to yourself that you can achieve something that you set out to do, congratulations, because you have just built more confidence in yourself. And that's really the ticket. Confidence comes with action. So, what does that mean for you as an introvert who struggles with shyness and social awkwardness? Well, it means, and I also would like for you to make note of this underneath all of those strengths that you just wrote down. It means finding opportunities where your strengths can flourish and then taking those opportunities. So, in other words, don't run away from social interactions because you're scared of failing or scared of being embarrassed or being rejected. Do not listen to those fears, right? Because those fears are what have been holding you back all of this time. So ignore those fears. Do it even though you're scared. Do it scared. And then once you see the kind of value that it has in action and you experience it for yourself, that's where the self-confidence is built. And so I'll give you an example of actually an example that happened to me just last month. So, but I have to start a few years before that. So during the first few years of my first full-time job, I had always been making excuses as to why I couldn't attend the annual Christmas party, because at that point in my life, I still had social anxiety and I was pretty much always finding excuses to avoid going to social events until last year in 2024. And that's when I said to myself, you know what? Because this is just about 1 month ago. At that point, I've already gotten over my social anxiety. I'm way less socially awkward than I used to be. So I'm just going to go to the party this year. I don't have an excuse not to go. I'm not scared of talking to people anymore. I'm just going to go. And I did go. I made sure that I looked my best. I had on a nice sweater, earrings. I had on this, my favorite red lipstick that I have on right now from the Lip Bar. I did my hair and I went in with the goal of focusing on one-on-one interactions. And it's not that I was completely against engaging in group conversations, but I just knew that I'm more comfortable in one-on-one connections or on a one-on-one basis. And those are a lot easier to initiate for me because all you have to do is find one person who isn't already talking to someone. And then also, I figured that it would help me build my confidence towards the beginning of the gathering so that I could um, feel more confident going into the group dinner situation later. And what do you know? By the end of the night, I had engaged in 6 different conversations with 6 different people, one of which was actually a group of 7 people. So actually, I should say 6 different conversations with 6 different people. I found myself in 6 different social interactions, one of which was a group of 7 people at dinner. And when I was in the midst of it, I hardly even recognized myself because I was laughing, I was talking, I was telling stories, I was getting to know people, and it was just so different than how I remember being in social gatherings. Like previously, when I still had social anxiety, I would just be grasping my drink in the corner desperately trying to avoid people's eye contact, hoping that nobody would talk to me. And it was just a stress-filled evening for me. And it was just so different then. So I'm still an introvert, of course. So when I got home, I was feeling a little bit drained from all of the socializing. But more than that, I felt very full because of all of the camaraderie that I had experienced with my coworkers and the higher ups. And I had built up my confidence in my introverted social skills. And here's the most important thing that I want you to remember. I was not in this Christmas party, I was not lively. I wasn't the lively life of the party, charismatic one. I was just myself, and I was still able to connect with people who enjoyed my company and whose company I also enjoyed. I didn't have to fake being an extrovert. I was myself. I talked to people. If a group conversation happened to occur, I would engage in it, even though it's not my strong suit. I would give it a shot anyway. And when I got home, I was able to recharge for the weekend, which is exactly what introverts do. They recharge with alone time. So, after telling you that story, my question to you is, what do you think is standing in the way of you trusting yourself? The answer is you. You are in your own way. I'm sure you've heard that on some other podcast, because that saying, you're in your own way, it's so cliche, but it is so true. So that means that you need to move out of your own way. And that means stop comparing yourself to people whom you will never be, extroverts. Stop being jealous of people who can do what you can't do, extroverts. And focus on building confidence in your own strengths as an introvert. And once you start to see the kinds of connections that you can build by being yourself in all of your introversion, you're going to stop feeling jealous. Um, or you're going to stop feeling the jealousy take over your body when you feel like you're being overshadowed by an extrovert. You're going to stop being scared to look people in the eye with confidence and speak up in those group environments, those team meetings at work, and those group conversations that you find yourself in. You're going to leave your fears of embarrassment and rejection behind, which is going to open up so many connections and opportunities for you. And you're going to be able to walk into a room knowing that your introverted strengths can create powerful connections. So just to quickly recap all of the key points that we just went over up until this point, there's 4 of them. Number 1, introverted is not the same thing as shyness and social anxiety. It's a difference between preference of being alone and a fear of people. They're not the same thing. So just because you're an introvert does not mean that you have to be shy and socially anxious forever. Number 2, extroverts and introverts have different strengths, but that does not mean either is more or less important than the other. Number 3, your jealousy of extroverts is not about you being introverted. It's about you lacking confidence in your introverted strengths and qualities. And number 4, the only way to build confidence and trust in your introverted qualities is to find opportunities to use them and then to actually use them, because confidence comes with action. So those are the high points that I'm hoping you remember from this discussion. So now, if you have tried to get to that level of confidence, being a socially confident introvert, on your own, or maybe you've sought help before, but you just haven't yet been successful, it's not because you can't do it, and it's not because you're a failure. It might just be that you haven't had the right sort of guidance and support, and that is where I might be able to help you. So with my services, I help introverts like you who are shy, awkward, and don't trust that they have what it takes to make meaningful connections and just move throughout life without a fear of socializing. I help them learn how to socialize in a way that feels natural to them. And if that sounds like a service that you need, book a free call with me, a free discovery call, so that we can talk about exactly how you can move forward with your social confidence journey and how I can assist you as someone who has been exactly where you are right now. You can find the link to schedule your call directly. It's my Calendly link just in the description of this episode. Or if it's quicker for you or easier for you to remember, just go to the introvertedmisfit.com/coaching. And there you can actually read all of the details about my program, Communicate with Quiet Confidence. So it's a 12-week program. And then there you can also book your free call with me. So that's all for today's episode. As always, if you enjoyed this talk, please don't forget to hit the follow or subscribe button, leave a review and or a comment, whether you're tuning in on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts from, and share this podcast episode with a friend. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.